This video a source gave to us shows a November adult slumber party at a Forsyth County home. Among those attending, mother of 5, Tamla Horsford. But after a night of fun,
laying in the yard down, basically on the patio downstairs.
A gruesome discovery. Horsford dead in the backyard.
Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for being here. In the case I'll be talking about today, the police have ruled this woman's death to be just an accident, even with the mounds of evidence that shows otherwise. And does the fact that she was the only black woman at a party full of white women and a couple men have anything to do with what happened to her in those early morning hours? Tamla St. Horsford was born on October 10, 1978, in Kingstown, St. Vincent in the Grenadines. When she was 11 years old in 1989, Tamla had moved with her family to Bronx, New York. And later in her life, after she moved to Florida, Tamla, who was called Tam for short, had gotten married to a man named Leander Horsford. Leander had one daughter of his own when he met Tamla, and the couple would go on to have 5 children of their own, all boys. Tamla was said to be a loving mother and wife who had a vibrant and fun personality. She was also an amazing friend and an all-around compassionate person. Tamla was an active mom in the school and in the community, and she could often be found on the sidelines cheering on her boys as they played various sports. Tamla loved to cook, dance, go to the beach, and, most of all, spend time with her family. She was loved by pretty much everyone who knew her. Then in 2013, Tamla, Leander, and the rest of the family would move to Cumming, Georgia for Leander's work. Now the new county they lived in, Forsyth County, has long been rife with racial tension. In fact, in 1912, more than 1,000 black residents were driven out of the town. And to this day, Forsyth County has remained predominantly white.
We bring you today to Forsyth County, Georgia, just 30 miles north of Atlanta, which in the past few weeks has gained the reputation of being a hotbed of racism. Here are just some of the images of Forsyth County in past weeks that were broadcast around the globe.
There's no niggers here. Why should they even come, you know? They asked for it. They got it, so why'd they come back, you know?
On November 3rd, 2018, Tamla made dinner for her husband and children. After that, she headed out of the house to attend an adult birthday sleepover to celebrate her friend Jean Meyer's birthday. Jean had invited a group of local moms who had met through the Youth Football League to spend the night, as they would be drinking and she didn't want anyone to drive back home later drunk. Tamla knew most of the women there, but she didn't know them very well, so she was rather hesitant to go at first. But she would end up going because she did not want to disappoint her friend Jean. So she arrived at the party on 4450 Woodlet Court in North Forsyth around 8:30 p.m., bringing with her a small overnight bag and a bottle of tequila. She had actually bought this bottle of tequila for Jean for her birthday, but Jean made it clear that she hated tequila and didn't want any. None of the other women at the party wanted any either and would turn their noses up at it. So Tamla would end up drinking this tequila while the other women at the party had other alcoholic beverages throughout the night. So this party was originally meant to be all women, but Jean's boyfriend, Jose Barrera, as well as one of the other attendees' husbands, decided to stay the night as well. So the group consisted of 9 women and 2 men. And 8 of these people planned on spending the night. So while the women drank, socialized, and watched the LSU-Alabama game upstairs in the living room, Jose and the other husband watched football in Jean's basement. Now, Tamla was the only one at the party who was a smoker, so she would regularly step outside onto the porch to have a cigarette. She had also smoked some marijuana that evening, but the host, John, teased her and said that she was the female Bob Marley, and then reminded her that her boyfriend, Jose, worked as a pre-trial officer for the court and did not approve. So 2 of the women left the party that night at 10:30 p.m. as they had no overnight babysitters. Close to midnight, the 2 guys and the remaining women decided to play Cards Against Humanity in the living room. They ended up playing for about an hour since it was very late at that point. Then everyone started tidying up and getting ready for bed. Around this time, Tamla FaceTimed with her husband and her older daughter. Also around this time, Tamla decided that she was going to drive back home as she hadn't had much to drink, and she decided that she'd rather not stay the night. Why she made that decision is unknown. However, the other women at the party insisted that she stay as they did not want her to drive home after drinking. By the time everyone had headed to bed, it was around 1:30 in the morning. The host of the party, Jean, and her boyfriend Jose headed up to bed around this time as well, and when they did, Tamla was still sitting at the kitchen counter eating a bowl of gumbo. She told them that she was going to go out for another cigarette, and then she was going to fall asleep on either the couch or make her way up to one of the children's rooms and pass out there. None of the children were home at the time. They were all being babysat elsewhere. So John had a security system in her house, and it would send her alerts every time any of her doors were opened. So at 4:10 a.m., there was an alert sent to her phone as one of the partygoers had to leave early to get ready for her 6 a.m. shift at work. Though when she was later interviewed, it was found out she didn't even need to be into work until 10 a.m., so that's a long time to get ready. And yet another person left at 7:30 a.m. that morning. 2 more guests named Stacy and her husband Tom would leave between 8 and 8:30 a.m. Shortly after, Madeline Lombardi, Jean's aunt who also lived there, looked out into the backyard as she was making her coffee, and she saw something very chilling. There, she saw Tamla lying face down in the grass underneath the deck where she had gone out the night prior to have a cigarette. Madeline ran upstairs to tell Jean and Jose what she had seen, but not before she decided to pray next to the body. She prayed next to Tamla's body before she tried to resuscitate her or call 911. So at 8:59 a.m., a 911 call was placed. On the 911 call, you can also hear Jose telling the operator that he can see that there is a small cut on Tamla's wrist, and he doesn't know if it was self-inflicted or not.
Forsyth County 911.
Hi, yes. I need an ambulance and a police to my home.
What's the address?
4450 Woodlet Court.
4450 Woodlake?
Woodlet.
Woodlet, okay. All right, 4450 Woodlet Court. What is your name?
My name is John Myers, Jeanne.
Okay, and your phone number is 609?
Yes.
Okay, what's going on?
We had people over last night. We were drinking. Most of us went to bed. One of them stayed on the balcony. She was drinking, and we just went outside, and she's laying face down in the backyard. It looks like I'm guessing maybe she fell off the balcony, but she's stiff.
Okay, is she breathing?
I don't know if she's face down.
Okay, how old is she?
41. Here, hold on.
Hey, this is Jose Barrera.
Hey, have y'all checked to see if she's breathing?
She's not moving one bit. She's not breathing.
Okay.
I just tried to assess her, touch her. She's completely face down in the yard. She is stiff.
Okay. Do you know if she, have you seen any blood or anything to where, from where she fell?
I don't know if I should move her over. I mean, she is completely face down.
Okay. I mean, can you just check and see if she's breathing? If she's not breathing and you know she's gone, then just leave her where she's at. If she, okay.
1 minute. I'm completely not sure.
Okay, and that's the only blood that you would see?
That's what I can see without moving her over. I haven't seen her face.
Do you know if she was stable at all?
I have no clue. I've met her one other time. Like my girlfriend said, people were over last night. She was her birthday party. We're not the woman that we believe to be deceased, but it's my girlfriend's birthday party. Instead of having everybody go out, she had everyone stay in. And she was the last one I saw before everybody. Everybody was typically put off to bed. And she was the last one in the kitchen. She was just either waiting around for a ride or waiting until the morning.
Okay. How far is the where she would have fell from? How far is the deck from the ground?
I would probably say maybe 20 feet.
Okay.
20 feet from where your feet would be on the railing. The railing itself is maybe 3.5, 4 feet.
Okay. And what is her name?
I know her name. We call her Tam. I'm assuming that's short for Tammy or Tamra.
Was she there with anyone else?
Her name is Tam Horsford, Horsford, so the black female. I don't believe anybody was. My girlfriend has cameras here on the back deck that we can check.
Okay.
That I think would have caught the incident if she fell from here. Again, I don't know. It's hard to say if she fell from the deck or if she was already downstairs. She was the only smoker here, and I'm sorry. That's a lot of information.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. So you think she's possibly out there smoking?
Yeah, she was the only smoker. I mean, I'm on the back deck right now, and cigarettes, lighter, that type of thing are out here.
Okay.
I'm just trying to see where on her wrist might have came from.
Okay. All right. Are all the people that were there last night, are they still at your house?
Okay. Okay, there are 4 people that were here last night that are no longer here.
Okay. And they just left this morning, or they leave last night?
Do you know roughly what time each of them left? Like, who they completely I'm assuming. We can check. She's got an alarm system that gives alerts when the doors are open on her phone.
Okay.
But I think the last time that I personally saw Tam was probably about 1 in the morning before I'd gone upstairs to bed.
Okay.
And at that point, she was the only one in the kitchen. I know.
Okay. Let me see where everybody is. I have one deputy that's about to pull into your subdivision. So I'll stay on the phone with you just for a minute. Is this going to be around back? Is that the way he needs to go?
Right. So when he pulls up to the residence, there will be one car in the street, 4 in the driveway.
And does he need to come and go through the house, or does he need to walk around the back?
They can go around to the side. I'm going to grab my shoes, and I'll direct them when they get here. It'll be easier for them because she's laying in the yard down, basically on the patio downstairs.
Okay. All right, I have one that should be pulling up. Do you see him outside?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll let you go then.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Bye.
Police would end up arriving at the home at 9:07 a.m., and Tamla would be pronounced dead at the scene. Additionally, everyone who had been at the party the night before was called back so they could give their version of events of what had happened. 30 people in total would end up being interviewed by police. The initial autopsy of Tamla's body discovered that she had multiple blunt force injuries as well as a high blood alcohol level, 0.238, just shy of 3 times the legal limit to drive. Tamla's cause of death was determined to be blunt force injury. But even before her autopsy report came back, the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office began to work the theory that Tamla's death had only been an accident, a fall from the second-story outdoor deck, which was only 14 feet off of the ground. This was after Tamla's husband, Leander, was originally told that his wife had tripped and fallen from ground level, which was what caused her death. Police claimed that she had likely tripped over some garden edging, a hazard that John's aunt, who lives in the home, said she has stumbled over in the past herself. But Tamla's family struggled to understand how she possibly could have fallen from ground level and died. And when her husband asked investigators about this theory and the confusion that it caused, they agreed that it had been a mistake to hypothesize this to the family so early on. In fact, one of the lead detectives on the case, Michael Christian, had only brought forward the theory that she had fallen from the deck instead of from ground level when the medical examiner explained that it would have been impossible for her to fall from ground level and have died. So police believe that Tamla had died around 1:57 in the morning. That was when, according to the security door alerts, the back door had been opened and it had never been shut again. Authorities had made the conclusion that likely Tamla went out onto the balcony to have a cigarette, and since she had been drinking, she accidentally fell over the edge. Police believed that since she was not only drinking but also smoking marijuana, Tamla was likely to be disoriented, and they believed that this contributed to her fall. So the case was officially closed on February 20th, 2019, and Tamla's death was ruled an accident. Officials announced that none of her injuries aligned with foul play, and they made a statement saying, "It was a party. They were drinking. She was drinking." Most of the partygoers had gone to bed at that time, and she was out on the deck alone. Tamla's husband said that she was the kind of woman who could drink a half bottle of tequila and still be able to dance in her 6-inch heels. So there was no way she had been so drunk that Tamla had accidentally fallen off of the porch. Then, while speaking with police roughly 2 weeks after Tamla's death, fellow party attendee Stacy Smith also expressed her doubt that Tamla could have accidentally fallen off the deck. She told police that she had been on that deck 1,000,000 times before, and she said that she had even tried to test the theory herself, that Tamla, who was drunk, had leaned over the railing to vomit, but had actually leaned too far and then fallen. But try as she might, she was unable to recreate how Tamla could have possibly gone over the railing. Stacy also said that Tamla had not been acting extremely drunk or sick, despite her high blood alcohol content level. And photographs and videos captured during the night of the party show Tamla smiling and happy, and while she had been drinking the tequila, in the photos, videos, and witness accounts, she did not appear to be very drunk at all that evening. The homeowner, Jean, was initially so convinced that Tamla did not fall from the balcony that she had made a post to her social media account expressing this. This quickly changed, however, once Tamla's friend Michelle Graves took to social media herself. And she spoke about her suspicions that people at the party knew more than they were telling, because things in Tamla's death were just not adding up. Michelle Graves also said to the media, "They're totally lying. They're not out of the woods because this was not an accident." Michelle, however, was sued a few weeks later by several of the partygoers, including Jean, who in their lawsuit claimed that Michelle had caused irreparable damage to their reputations with 13 Facebook posts, which contained false statements accusing them of committing murder and or aiding and abetting in Tamla's death. But Michelle claimed she had posted nothing but the facts, and she had verified this information through Tamla's case file. Now, when Tamla had been found, she had been found face down, with her arms by her sides and her palms face up. At least that's what Jean and Jose had said. But when first responders had arrived, her arms were in a different position. Her left arm was found extended and bent at the elbow, with her fist clenched. She also did not have her face turned one way or the other, and it looked like she had just face planted into the ground. A very unnatural position. Even the deputies who had arrived at the scene seemed very confused about Tamla's body position. One officer said, If you go to brace yourself with your left hand and there ain't nothing to brace yourself with, you'd spin, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. It's kind of like a nosedive. There were also several cuts and scrapes found on Tamla's hands and arms, and people were questioning whether or not these were defensive wounds, which would suggest that maybe there was an altercation prior to Tamla going over the balcony's edge. Jose Barrera had apparently later called an investigator on November 7th and told them that he had indeed checked for Tamla's pulse. And that's the reason why her arm was likely moved. But in a later interview with a special agent, Jose denied that altogether. And when he was confronted with the report of him saying that, he called it complete bullshit, saying he had not moved her arm and there was no way he checked for a pulse. But Jose had admitted to police that he had actually found an unlit cigarette and a lighter that were lying on the deck prior to him seeing Tamla's body. But since police had believed that Tamla's death was just an accident, no evidence had ever been fingerprinted, and the crime scene had never been preserved, leaving potential evidence contamination. And though Jose had stated in the original 911 call that there were security cameras pointed at the backyard, the batteries were found to be dead in all of the cameras and they had not recorded anything. Convenient. Tamla's family and friends had other questions too, like why had nobody tried to perform CPR on Tamla when she was found? Not even the police had. In fact, they had called off EMS, and Tamla was just hauled away in a body bag. There was no effort made whatsoever to try to save this woman's life. Many were also wondering why the only black woman at a party full of white women was the one who had gotten killed. Was this racially motivated? If there was a party full of black women and one white woman, and that one white woman ended up dead, I'm pretty positive that it would have been handled as a crime scene right off the bat. As I had said before, the county that they lived in, Forsyth County, had a terrible history of racism. And the sheriff at the time of Tamla's death, Ron Freeman, has himself faced allegations of both racism and nepotism. Ron had actually resigned from the city of Brookhaven in 2014 after he had been caught trying to alter the personnel file of another officer, an officer who had been fired for posting racially insensitive images online. And this same officer that Ron was trying to help by altering his file had also helped him on his running campaign and now worked at the coroner's office, though this coroner claimed he had never been put on Tamla's case. Ron Freeman is also said to have a history of protecting his own personal interests rather than protecting the community and their safety. Eventually, Tamla's case gained nationwide attention, with many celebrities speaking about how they did not believe that Tamla's death was just an accident. However, it wasn't until a Change.org petition was made and over 600,000 signatures were gathered that Sheriff Freeman asked the Georgia Bureau of Investigations to reopen and re-examine Tamla's case in July of 2020. Additionally, another one of the lead investigators on the case, Andy Kalin, was friends with one of the people of interest, Jose. Andy was also a personal friend of Sheriff Ron Freeman, and he had hired him after he was elected as sheriff. And Andy had had no prior police experience, but he was hired into a high position, bypassing the new hire protocol. This included a polygraph test and background checks. Not to mention that Jose had clearly been a longtime employee who worked closely with the sheriff's office. On the body camera audio after police arrived at the home the morning Tamla was found, you can actually hear one of the deputies, assumed to be Andy Kalin, walking another deputy through the different people at the scene. And he mentions Jose Barrera. He says, "We've got some mutual friends together. I've known Jose for a while. We're friends." One can also hear another woman from the party expressing her concerns about getting to her new job on time. After explaining where she works, the deputy said to her, "I'm sure you're good because your boss is my wife." Police also found several more door alerts that had happened in the home around the time that Tamla was believed to have died. The garage door had been opened before the back patio door had last opened at 1:40 a.m. The garage door, like the patio door, had also never been closed until the following morning. When authorities spoke with the last person to have seen Tamla alive, Bridget Fuller, she told them that Tamla and her had walked to the front door together because Bridget's husband had come to pick her up. But before she had exited the home, she had hugged Tamla. This matched the chime that had happened at the front door at 1:47 a.m. But the thing is, the woman's husband who came to pick her up said that he only saw his wife and he did not see Tamla at the door at all. With all the things not adding up in Tamla's death, everyone was very skeptical, and this had actually started when Jose was fired in December of 2018 from his job as a pretrial officer. This had been because Jose had used his position to illegally obtain access to documents related to Tamla's death. It was also said that he had leaked confidential information about her case. But Jose would insist he had not done anything illegal and everything he looked up was public information. The other odd thing is that when Tamla's body was sent in for an autopsy, only 5 photos had been taken, which is a very low number for a death investigation. Tamla's injuries alone should have warranted more photos than that. And Tamla's father would say this was because police were investigating Tamla and not the actual perpetrators. So how did a woman who had such a high blood alcohol content level remain completely in control of her facilities, yet managed to fall over a 4-foot railing into the backyard? Also, how could a house full of people not hear her fall or scream or anything? And what really happened when the door had been opened just before 2 a.m., and why had it not been closed until the following morning? For over a year, Tamla's family fought for her case to be re-examined because they did not believe that she had died accidentally. They also called for a second autopsy to be done, and this would finally be carried out by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in June of 2020. According to this autopsy done by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, or GBI, Tamla showed blunt force trauma to her head, neck, torso, and extremities. Additionally, she had suffered a broken neck and laceration of the right ventricle of her heart. The GBI toxicology report additionally found that Tamla's blood alcohol content was 0.238, as the other autopsy had also found. But this autopsy additionally found that there was Xanax in Tamla's system, and no one knew how it had gotten there. Tamla's family would end up hiring another medical examiner to get a third opinion, and this medical examiner would say that her dislocated wrist was actually a compound fracture. In scene photos, you can see on Tamra's right wrist a bone sticking out. This injury is significant because there was very little blood found on the scene, raising questions about how and where this injury had occurred. What little blood that can be found on Tamla's sleeve is on the opposite side of her injury and was concluded to be post-mortem. The thing is, no medical examiner had found any evidence of any significant injuries to Tamla's skull and bones. The absence of bruising to broken bones in her skull raises the flag to her cause of death as falling from the second story of a building. While getting statements from everyone who had been at the party that night, police did get photos and videos from their phones, but they didn't ask to take any of the devices or download any of the data, nor did any of the deputies subpoena any of the partygoers' phones for evidence. This wouldn't happen until the GBI got involved. And by that time, records showed that at least 2 people had new phones, and detectives learned that text messages and pictures on some of the phones had at this point been deleted. During their investigation, the GBI caught a few of the partygoers in what appears to be a series of lies. One woman who was diagnosed with severe anxiety, named Bridget Fuller, told police that her medication made it impossible for her to lie. I have no idea what that means. I've never heard of an anti-lie, anti-anxiety medicine, but okay. She also said she was so dependent on her medication that she wore a necklace with her Xanax in it. She told investigators that she understood it was a controlled substance and had not shared it with anyone. Yet once the GBI subpoenaed everyone's phones, they found text messages that said otherwise. This woman had actually shared some type of medication with a few of the partygoers prior to the party, and she had given some of the women at the party some Xanax. When confronted, she admitted that this was true, but insisted that she had only shared her drugs with some of the other women and not Tamla because she didn't know her very well. But Tamla had Xanax in her system, and no one knew why. Also, just as a side note, this woman Bridget did not really care for Tamla, though it didn't really seem like any of the women were too keen on her. And one of the lead detectives on Tamla's case, Michael Christian, resigned from the police department amid an internal affairs investigation. Michael Christian, however, insisted that the woman who had triggered this internal investigation was just acting out of hurt. But the internal investigation would end up finding that he had violated his oath of office and neglected his duty. As part of their investigation into Michael Christian, the GBI spoke with 2 women who said they had received details about Tamla's case. One ex-girlfriend of Michael's recalls him sharing Tamla's toxicology report with her, as well as his own suspicion that her body had been moved. And another woman who was interviewed by the GBI claimed that Michael had sent her a photo of Tamla's body at the crime scene. This woman remembers that Michael was obsessed with the case to the point where he would have panic attacks about it. According to this ex-girlfriend, Michael believed that Tamla's death was accidental, but he did not believe that it was because she had fallen from a 14-foot balcony. This ex also told the GBI that Michael had told her he discovered calls between Jose Barrera and the lead investigator, Andy Kalin, prior to the 911 call, and he suspected that maybe he had helped the partygoers come up with a story. But both Jose and Andy would deny this. 3 screenshots from Snapchat messages that Michael had sent one of his girlfriends were also obtained. In a message sent on November 4th, the day that Tamla had been found dead, he sent a message in which he appears to be joking about speaking with her husband. It reads, "Hello, sir. I know we've never met, but I'm here to tell you that your wife and the mother of your 6 children is dead. Yes, I am happy to report that she was really drunk, trip landed face down in the backyard, and either through hypothermia, positional asphyxia, or aspirated on her own puke. Not sure which one. I know you have fun memories. Enjoy corralling these 6 boys who are now going apeshit." Michael Christian had even at one point called Tamla the porch lady. Then in another message that was dated November 19th, Michael says, "Greetings from racist, cracker, bastard, murder, cover-up land. How are you?" I'm sorry, what? He continues, "It's a nice rainy day, good for digging shallow graves by the roadside." In this context, Ralph Fernandez, the Horsford's family lawyer, believes that Graves is actually a reference to Tamla's friend, Michelle Graves. When interviewed by the GBI about these messages, Michael admitted to sending them, but characterized them as sarcasm and in poor taste. Yeah, I'd say so. The poor taste, that is. And while he admitted to sending the screenshotted Snapchat messages, he denied ever sending any photos of the crime scene. The GBI investigation appears to have left some loose ends. In an interview with investigators, Tamla's husband's friend, Stephen Reynolds, told police that he was concerned Tamla's murder might have been sexually motivated. He claimed that the 2 couples that had been present on the night of Tamla's death were actually swingers. He had told the GBI that his first thought after hearing that Tamla was dead was that someone had tried to initiate something with her sexually. This, however, never appears to come up anywhere else in the investigation, including in interviews with the 2 couples that he had named. It seemed like instead the GBI had focused much of their investigation on Tamla's husband, Leander. Investigators had previously issued search warrants for his phone as well as his social media accounts, but would find nothing. Then on July 28, 2021, the GBI concluded their investigation, ultimately deciding to not pursue any criminal charges again. So Tamla's death to this point is still being ruled as accidental, and nobody has been arrested or charged. When Tamla's husband went to the funeral home prior to the funeral and he saw his wife laying in her casket, he did not even recognize her.
This is the thing, is that a lot of people don't know the extent of the injuries, but I know them because, and this is going to shock some people, but when I went into the funeral home, I probably scared the shit out of everybody because I yelled, "What the fuck?" as loud as I could. I walked in and I saw my wife look like she had shoe polish on her face, black shoe polish all over her face. And I flipped out and I was like, nope, nope, nope. And I walked out and I told them, take that off of my wife. Take all that. Well, sir, I'm sorry, but we had to cover up the bruising and this and that. And I don't cover up the bruise. You don't cover up the bruising with black shoe polish. My wife is my color, you know, but yet her skin was this color, that like blackface. And so I was really pissed and I was gonna close the casket and just leave it a closed casket. This was for the viewing, not for the funeral, but for the viewing. And so my sons came out to me and said, Dad, what's wrong, man? Dad, what's wrong? Dad, what's wrong? And I said, you can't go in there. You can't see that. That's not your mom. That's not the way your mom looks. And they're like, Dad, I don't care. I want to see. I said, no. I said, these are grown man decisions. I don't want to see. I'm like, you're making a grown man decision. You're going to have to deal with it. And he's like, I don't give a fuck, Dad. I want to see. And that was my oldest at the time, because he was pissed. And so I said, you know what? Okay, you want to make grown man decisions? Come on, let's go. So I went in with my oldest boy, and he stood next to me, and we both just stood there and looked at her, and neither one of us shed a tear, because he looked nothing like her.
Wow, didn't even look like her.
It didn't look like her. And then they had, like, her wrist was all cocked up, and you could see where the bone had stuck out, like it was broken. And so then Gavin came up, which is not Peyton. Peyton didn't want to go in at all. So the one after Peyton came in, and he started walking up. I said, no. He said, Dad, come on. I said, you know what? It's your mom. Come on. And he walked up, and he stood there, and he didn't cry. And he looked at me, and he said, Dad, that doesn't.
Now, how old is he?
He, at the time, right now, he's 14. At the time, he was like 11. Okay. 11, 12, right around there. He was 11 making 12. And so he looked at me, he said, Dad, that doesn't look like no accident. Wow. And from the time my child told me that, I said, you know what? I said, leave the casket open. I said, leave it open. Let everybody in here, if a 12-year-old can walk up and say, Dad, that don't look like an accident, I said, leave the casket open.
Tamla Horsford's funeral was held at McDonald & Son Funeral Home in Cumming, Georgia on Friday, November 9th, 2018. A ceremony in celebration of Tam's life was then held the following day. This case kind of reminds me of the Shanquella Robinson case. Both her and Tamla were surrounded by people whom they thought were their friends. And both of their deaths were ruled as accidents, even though the evidence shows otherwise. It's incredibly unfair and frustrating that at this point, Tamla's family will likely never see any justice for her, since the last investigation into her death was closed 3 years ago and had the same findings as the first one. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.